directors. And apology that we are starting this meeting a little late. It's supposed to start at 4 p.m. So if you'll excuse that, we will then have the determination of a quorum, Mr. General Manager.
Yes, happy to do so. Director Tommy Falai. Here. Chairman Desi Alvarez.
Here.
Director Gloria Gray. Director Don Deere. Here. Director Scott Houston. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Okay, so we'll move on to presentations. Do we have any presentations today?
We have no. That's correct. We do have public comment before.
Oh, shit, public comment. Do we have any public comment?
We have not received any requests for public comment, though this meeting is being held both in person and virtually. If there's any member of the public that would like to speak, please indicate so by raising your virtual hand. And Mr. Chairman, I do not see a request for public comment.
Okay, how about presentations?
Staff has no presentations today.
Right, then we will move to the action calendar, and the first item, 5A, is the review and agreement for geographic information system software. So, Mr. General Manager, please introduce that one.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This item begins on packet page 4. And for the presentation, we do have Chandler Shields, our geographic information system specialist, for the presentation. Take it away, Chandler.
Good afternoon to the board. West Basin utilizes software, a platform called ArcGIS, that maps district service area, recycled water distribution system assets, field operator data, entry, hydraulic modeling, outside utility identification. The software is provided by the company Esri. Essentially, West Basin has been using this software for some time, and the current license agreement expires in March of this year. To keep that software license current and operational, staff is recommending entering into a new 3-year agreement with Esri from March 20th, 2026 through March 20th of 2029 for a total not to exceed amount of $71,100. Little background on the software. Essentially, it's the industry standard for GIS software, and is utilized by other utility agencies such as WRB, Central Basin, MWD, in a very similar capacity to how West Basin uses it, and allows for the sharing of services and products between the agencies. West Basin currently maintains an agreement with Esri that allows us to use this ArcGIS platform to do a number of things that are itemized on the page here, page 4. But I want to call out specifically, more recently, it's allowed us to integrate our database with asset management software, IPS, recently got off the ground, as well as the latest aerial imagery provided by the County of Los Angeles. So the ArcGIS software licensing will conclude, as mentioned, in March of this year. Staff is requesting a 3-year agreement, which is included in attachment A. That's page 6 in the agenda packet. Essentially, the cost of the closed software agreement is, as mentioned, $71,100 over 3 years, which is a package made available specifically to small utility agencies. Esri has recently restructured the tiers for these specific small utility agency agreements that are made available to utilities such as West Basin, recognizing that not all staff that have user accounts require the same robust access. And as a result of that, the annual fee for this agreement will decrease by 13.8% compared to our previous 3-year agreement.
You said decrease?
Decrease. In attachment B, which is on page 13 of the agenda packet, Esri has included a sole source letter, as they are the only provider of their products and related maintenance services in the U.S. commercial, state, and local government marketplace. Essentially, if this software license is not renewed, district program would be severely limited and restricted. It's extensively used by our operations department and used by other departments as well at the agency. So the alternatives essentially with limited functionality, limited support and our additional setup costs or integration if pursued otherwise. So the benefit to West Basin is that the renewal allows us to keep running our GIS program as such. The fiscal impact, essentially the budget is being allocated from the IT department in this case through the rest of this fiscal year and the fiscal years for 2026, 27, 27, 28, and 28, 29. So staff and recommendation, asking that the board authorize the general manager to enter into a 3-year agreement with Esri for license of the software platform ArcGIS from March 20th, 2026, March 20th, 2029, for a total not to exceed amount of $71,100. Are there any questions from the board?
We'll see. Director 5A, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Through EJ, I have a question on your report. So you mentioned the 3-year term.
Yes.
Now, how many times has this technology has been renewed? Is this like the first, the second, third?
Since I've been here at the district, this is the second time that it's being renewed on a 3-year license. And my understanding that before, it's been in place for at least a couple of 3-year terms. So over a decade at this point, at the very least.
And then when it comes to like the when this goes out to, these contractors like this, does it go out to like everyone in the industry when it comes to, the certain technology? Because it kind of seems like this company, ESRI,
Yes.
is the only contractor that actually has this type of technology, right?
That's
Correct?
correct. Yes. It's similar to like, Microsoft Office 365.
Got it.
But the difference is that it's even more singular in the marketplace, whereas Office 365 has Microsoft Word and Excel. Google has Google Sheets, Google Docs, which offer comparable services or software applications, whereas Esri doesn't actually have competitors in that space. There's some open source software that does certain things, especially with like online maps. But otherwise, it's pretty much a standalone company in the industry of GIS.
Okay.
Director Gibbs. It's just following up on Director 5A's question. You're looking at a sole source provider, and they're the only ones that provide this particular type of software, the GIS primarily, in terms of the mapping function.
Correct.
So how much of the other functions that you've mentioned do we really use? How much need do we have for those? I understand the mapping side.
Data analysis, database storage, being able
So
to.
when you say data analysis and storage, what does that mean? Other than mapping type of data?
It means like for your assets in your distribution system. So
So do we use this as an asset management system?
it is in partnership with our asset management system.
It's integrated to our Info IPS system currently. So yes, it's in working in tandem.
So integrated in partnership. We're also using it to collect our survey data for our robotic protection surveying that we're doing right now as well. So that's a big part of the dynamism that
Mapping. Okay.
the Esri piece offers with data paired with the mapping part. That's for example, this one.
Director, if I could jump in, historically GIS softwares are typically for your horizontal assets only, right? Your pipes in the streets. The those sorts of things. But in the last probably decade or so, they have made strides in actually being able to be functional and usable for your vertical assets. While I don't think we're there yet, where we are actually using the software to track our facility assets, the software generally does have that capability. And as staff has mentioned, with the efforts that we're making under the new Jacobs contract, to get a better handle on our asset management program for the facilities, there are opportunities to tie this software into that asset management software so we can have one comprehensive location for both vertical and horizontal assets, pipelines and facilities. But again, I don't think we're there yet. It's just a capability that we can have.
Chair, I have one more comment.
Sure, go ahead, Rick.
So you mentioned the partners, when it comes to MWD and Central Basin, that MWD and Central Basin has used this same software?
In Central Basin, as to West Basin, as a small utility,
Got it.
they have the same agreement.
Now, have we learned from MWD and Central Basin when it comes to their experience with this technology? How that technology has been with their equipment. So have we got any feedback from those two agencies on how this specific sole source company that does this, and how they have had experience with them?
Yeah, I can speak to that certainly on MWD side, especially with their distribution system where we have potable water side in terms of the service connections that we manage. A lot of report going back and forth in terms of how they use ArcGIS software to manage their distribution system and facilities.
So would you say that this company, when hearing from MWD or Central Basin, that this is one of recommended company?
Absolutely.
Director Sabe, Esri, fortunately or unfortunately, they've been around for a long time. And it's not just the water, other cities and a lot of the private companies, not consulting, but other companies that have need for mapping services, they all rely on Esri. They really kind of have cornered the market. So the whole deal is, how much services do you want and what kind of a deal can you strike?
Thank you.
To that point, directors, one benefit we do have is that if one of those partners decides to share their files, they're automatically translatable into our system. So for instance, on the view that I can access, and I think I have limited access, they don't want me to break it, but I can actually see Met's potable water distribution system because we've incorporated their files into our system. So what that means is when we get asked a question by a retailer, we can answer that question, even though it's not necessarily our asset.
So interesting follow-up that just came to mind. Does Chevron share? Because Chevron uses the S3 platform. Do you have access to all of their
I don't
Asset?
think we've asked, and I doubt,
horizontal assets?
they would share, but I don't think we've asked.
That'd be a good one. Okay, so I have one other question, and that goes back to this whole issue of the negotiating for them. So we're considered a small water system, and that means that we have 10,000 connections. What do they do for really small water systems?
Yeah, they use the meter connection language in the quote there. But essentially, it's really based on employee size. So for us, we're underneath 75 employees, and that's typically how they go about placing tiers for the utility agency in this case.
But that's true and not true, isn't it? Just you have let's say 75 employees. You don't have, they won't let 75 employees have active access to the entire file.
In the previous agreement that we had, it So they-
Will
they-
this one do that?
did. Well, they changed the user account breakdown essentially, so you have much less number of users that do have that robust access. And essentially you have unlimited accounts that you create that are just you only, as Eric was referring to.
Right. So how many employees are going to have unlimited access?
I think you could have up to 20 potentially.
Under this
User
contract.
count Under this agreement. How many people actively are making and creating, let's just say, maps or, accessing data? Say less than 10. And of course, I'm the sole, manager of pretty much all of our GIS content in a hands-on capacity. So, the new structuring for the agreement makes a lot of sense for our utility agency. And the last 3 years, I've been able to, to glean how our district uses GIS. It's somewhat limiting of the access, user account wise.
I'm just wondering if there's a way to get into a smaller category, but you're saying it's basically employee-based number. So if we only had 50, do they break it out to a smaller package?
Yeah, I mean, basically under 75 is kind of their smallest.
From 0 to
utility.
75?
Small
That's what you gotta buy now?
utility.
That's what you have to buy now is from 0 to 75?
In terms of their smallest utility package. And then if we were to go up into the next tier, it would be roughly about $10,000 more per year. If we wanted more user accounts.
So what if we didn't buy it as a utility?
If you did like a custom approach, I looked into that when I first started the job, roughly about 3.5 years ago, and they would charge you considerably more. So this is their standard, packaging that they offer. Their utility, small utility agencies in this case, like MWB is probably not considered a small utility agency, for example.
That's what I was gonna say, because they're much in a higher tier, right? Than us compared with West Basin and Central Basin.
Central Basin.
Yeah.
WRD is still
Big one.
Okay. Just, we're gonna need a GIS. I'm assuming we'll move this forward.
Mr. Chairman, if I could add, Director Gloria Gray has joined us online, so just want you to be aware.
Yes,
Welcome.
thank you for acknowledging. Thank you. And the questions I had have already been answered. I think those are all good questions. Thank you.
All right, so moving on, we will move to item 5B, which is an easement agreement with the Carson Reclamation Authority for access to a recycled water flushing station.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, yes, this item begins on packet page 14. And for the presentation, we do have Alejandra Cano Alvarado, our engineer one, for the presentation.
Thank you, EJ. Good afternoon, members of the committee. As EJ mentioned, you could find a copy of the staff report on page 14 of the agenda. This item relates to the District at South Bay Carson Reclamation Authority project. This customer development project, which is being developed by Carson Reclamation Authority or CRA, aims to extend an existing recycled water pipeline for landscape irrigation purposes at a property site located in the city of Carson. If you could follow on page 17 of the agenda, you will see a project location for reference. As you may recall, back in September 2024, West Basin entered into an agreement with CRA, or the Carson Reclamation Authority. Under this agreement, CRA is designing and constructing 4,000 linear feet of new recycled water and its appurtenances. Per this agreement, after the completion of the new recycled water and connecting it to the existing pipeline that was constructed back in 2016, the recycled water system will be transferred to West Basin upon acceptance. Taking ownership of the pipeline system provides net benefits to the district by increasing the district assets with non-immediate impact on revenues or expenses. In terms of the operation and maintenance cost, it's expected that the new recycled water system will be minimum in terms of the cost, especially at the beginning, at the initial years of operation. As part of the project, the recycled water flushing station is required to maintain water quality and reduce odor within the recycled water system. The flushing station is located outside of the public right of way and discharges to a sewer service owned and maintained by CRA. As a result, West Basin requires permanent access rights to enter the property for inspections, operations, maintenance, and any repairs that the flushing station and the related recycled water facilities might need. Due to this requirement, the city of Carson and CRA have agreed to grant to West Basin a non-exclusive easement. The proposed easement encompasses about 244 square feet. That includes the rights to enter and exit the site. The easement will remain effective in perpetuity and will be recorded with the Los Angeles County Recording Office. A copy of the easement agreement can be found in packet page 18, also for your reference, and the dates will be updated upon approval. Currently, the project is under construction and it's anticipated that the completion of the project will be in May of this year. With that, I will read the recommendation that the board authorize the general manager to execute an easement agreement with the CRA, granting West Basin access to the recycled water flushing station and related appurtenance for the district at South Bay CRA project. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Question,
5A, go ahead.
Chair. Thank you for bringing up this project because it's in my district and I know they've been looking to build something on that 157-acre site. And hopefully this triggers something, some type of economic development there on that site. But I have a question. Can you explain to me what is the benefit for us when it comes to this easement agreement? Yeah, what is the benefits out of it for West Basin?
Yeah, so basically the benefit is to be able to maintain and operate the flushing station as well as the recycled water that will be transferred to us once completed. So just to maintain the water quality and reduce any odors that the system may have.
And then how long is this agreement, this easement agreement?
Perpetuity, like it's an effect in perpetuity, so it doesn't have a specific.
Director Gray, any questions?
No, thank you. Thank you, Director, Chair.
Okay, so can you put up the project site that shows the easement?
It's packet page 18.
Yes.
That is the project location, the following. Oh, sorry, so, okay, the easement will be, yeah. So if
You
you.
just slide that up. So you can get to the.
Sorry, a little bit down, sorry. Yeah, so the flashing station, it's in the blue area located. That's what's gonna be the,
Go to the bottom of the page. There you go.
yeah, so it's on the south side of the project site.
Okay, so on the easement, is that the roadway they're building there or it's? or is
Yes,
it,
like the road,
So it's in the road.
correct. Yeah, the water recycle pipeline is gonna go along that road.
Right, and you said though, it should be 240 square foot easement,
Square feet, part of the easement to enter and exit.
but don't we have an easement of the entire pipeline?
No,
No.
only for the flashing station area.
And I can actually jump in very quick on this one. So right now the pipeline is, with this enclosed area in the process of being developed. And the intentions is that basically the pipeline is gonna be in what is gonna be public right away in the future. There is a portion of that roadway, that public right away that kind of curves.
Mhm.
And the way that they set up the street and the way that they set up the public right away, the little portion where the flashing station is gonna be located at cuts the private right away, unfortunately. And the developers, the designers, they were like trying, and we were working, trying to put that flashing station maybe within public right away. But unfortunately, because the way that it's curving and hugging that area, it's just not feasible. So there was, reviews that went back and forth, and there's.
So this is just not for the pipeline. The
No.
pipeline's in the right of way.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just for a flashing station. And this location is basically at endpoint. So typically at endpoints, there's the situation in which, water can get stagnant or something can happen. So the flashing station is going to allow us to at least maintain the water quality.
Okay,
Directors, I would add that once the project's complete, we'll put those as-built into our GIS system.
I,
And then maybe generate a map.
Like the,
they said. So the one thing is then that easement agreement is with the redevelopment agency now, but will that parcel always be held by the redevelopment agency, or will it going to be sold off and we will then have an easement with a private property owner?
It's with the Carson Regional.
With the Carson Regional Authority.
I know, but
I think
that's like a
there's,
redevelopment agency.
yeah,
They do sell property off. I mean, that's what they.
in behalf of the city of Carson. So if there is a change on names, we definitely will trace it. We will not we are gonna be aware of that, and we will make sure that those changes are made and updated accordingly.
But I believe, to your point, Director, the easement will follow the owner.
The owner of the property.
Yes.
So had we not accepted this pipeline and we would have said, you built it, which they did, and you own it and you maintain it, we wouldn't need this easement.
That is true, Director, but to your point, if they were to sell that property off, then we would have yet a third-party property owner that has to maintain a recycled water pipeline, and they're probably not the best suited entity to do that.
My problem. But now it is.
Predicting this discussion, I think the board memo does talk about the cost associated with this linear footage as being about $15,000, I think, a year to just maintain it the way that we maintain our recycled water pipeline. I think we also get into a discussion about the other potential benefits of getting free assets onto our books. So hopefully those take away some of that pain point of accepting this piece of property once it's completed.
I understand all of that, but the one thing I would take an objection to is that a free asset. I'm not quite sure that it's a free asset because it costs us money. And anything that costs me money is never free.
There,
So I would probably extend that analogy to the district. If it costs you money, it's not free.
let me rephrase that. Free capital, costly and O&M. If they cost both.
We could have sold the water and not owned the pipeline. Okay. But we own the pipeline, so are we gonna move this forward? We'll move
Yes.
This forward. What's the next item up?
I see.
5C, let me pull that one up. Five C, authorization to issue requests for bids for the sodium hypochlorite tank replacement at the Juanita Melinda McDonald Carson Regional Water Recycling Plant. Mr. General Manager.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this item begins on packet page 29. And again, for this presentation, we have Alejandro.
Good day. Good afternoon again, directors. This item relates to the bulk chemical storage tank improvement project at the Juanita Millendor McDonald Carson Regional Water Recycling Plant. To provide some background, the sodium hypochlorite is a critical chemical at the plant operations. This chemical is essential for boiler feed water production, minimizing the microfiltration membrane fouling, and supporting the MF and RO cleaning processes, and also providing breakdown chlorination for the nitrification process. The original sodium hypochlorite tank itself is one of the 11 chemical storage tanks constructed in early 1990s, and since then has reached the end of the useful life. On August 2022, the original tank with a capacity of 8,000 gallons and a material of fiberglass reinforced plastic experienced a critical failure and resulting in a leak. If you turn to packet page 33 of the agenda under attachment A, you will see a photo of the original tank of the left side of the slide with the leak visible at the bottom. To ensure uninterrupted operations, staff immediately after the leak installed a temporary tank with lower capacity, about 6,900 gallons, and a material of high density polyethylene, was a rain-for-wine tank. A photo of that temporary tank can be also seen in the middle of the slide. And since the original tank failed, this temporary tank remains in place. While this temporary tank has allowed the facility to continue its operations, it has brought some operational limitations and some safety concerns. The operational limitations are due to the reduced capacity that has created some hydraulic constraints and operational challenges, including the need for more frequent chemical deliveries. In terms of the safety and from a safety standpoint, the rental tank is not anchored. At the time of the leak and when the rental tank was installed, staff initially assessed some options for the temporary tank, including anchoring the tank and purchasing the tank. However, due to some lack of footprint, the seismic calculations couldn't be completed when we were looking at some quotes for the seismic restraints. And in addition to that, the temporary tank cannot be purchased. This is due to the liability restrictions because they are not really intended for long-term use. Given these constraints and based on historical tank failures for both the permanent and the temporary tanks, the staff evaluated two comparative options. The first option was to proceed with a permanent tank replacement project. And the second option was to continue operating the temporary tank until failure with the non-project option. In 2024, a return of investment analysis was completed, demonstrating that replacing the temporary tank with a permanent tank with higher capacity was the most financially sound and operational reliable solution. In 2025, the 100% design package was completed. Following the completion of the design, the project was temporarily put on hold due to the negotiations that were happening with the Marathon Refinery. This agreement now has been fully executed, and with the funds now being secured, staff is preparing the final bid package, advancing the project into the construction phase. Due to the lead time to fabricate the tank for the fiberglass, which is about like 12 months. Staff is moving the project into the current fiscal year to ensure that the permanent tank is installed ahead or in a parallel effort with the 2026 stormwater mitigation and wastewater ordinance requirements that will take place at GMM, the facility. Issuing the request for bid at this time will allow West Basin to replace a temporary tank with a permanent, code compliance, cost-effective solution, also eliminating the long-term rental cost and resolving the operational constraints that I previously mentioned, and as well as reducing any safety risk that might take place with the temporary tank. The project, just want to note here, it's under the newly executed agreement with the Marathon Refinery. Now it's reimbursable, and that provides an immediate return of investment and reduce the financial impacts to the district. So with that, I will read the recommendation that the board authorize the general manager to issue a request for bid for construction of the sodium hypochlorite tank replacement project at GMN, $1 million Carson Regional Water Recycling Plant, once the construction bid package is complete and ready to be issued for solicitation. With that, I'll happy to answer any questions.
Question, Chair.
Yes.
You mentioned, I don't see any cost when it comes to, the construction and everything. Is there a reason why there's no numbers attached?
The numbers are included in the staff memo in packet page 30.
It's about $305,000 for the construction portion alone.
Okay. Okay, and then, so tonight's recommendation is to move the construction forward and the bid package and so forth, right? Are we coming back again for any approvals after this board or,
For the award.
for the award? Okay. Let's see. Now, you mentioned the temporary tank and the permanent tank that's actually leaking and stuff. So was there like a cost when you have this tank that's not online and then compared to the temporary tank installation? Was there a cost difference of, what the capacity of the smaller tank actually gives out or output or input compared to the permanent tank? Was there like kind of difference, cost difference?
It was at the time of conducting the return of investment, or we evaluated the cost of what would be for like that non-project. So having the rental for as long as we can until failure, and understanding that or having some background and historical data that says like temporary tanks will fail within 5 years of use. So we'll look at how much it will be for 5 years of renting the tank, plus environmental fees, plus if it fails every time, then it takes about like 4 days to get a new tank in place. So we'll have to provide portable water for the facility and the refinery. All those costs were included to understand how much it will cost within 25 years, which is what the permanent tank will have as a lifetime.
And you mentioned, there's tanks to replace a tank. Do they have these tanks like, off-site somewhere, like, on a shelf somewhere that we can get it like within 6 months or? Because you mentioned it takes a year to construct one of these tanks, right?
Yeah.
So will we be ready in a year? I mean, by the time they put in the new tank, will we be ready for the tank that's currently in construction?
So the objective to have the request for bid now issuing, it's to anticipate that, to have the fabrication as part of the procurement for construction and be ready when the tank is available. But it could take up to 12 months, it could be less. And so that information came like when we were doing the design phase, which might have to be updated now.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Director Deere. Director Gray. Okay,
I'm
so
here. I'm
do you
here.
have any questions?
No, thank you, thank you.
So the temporary tank went in, how long has it been in place?
Since 2022.
2 years. And it's worked just fine. Right?
Yes,
But
so
we are renting it, we didn't buy it.
we cannot purchase the tank.
And it's not meant for permanent use.
It's not meant for, it's not intended for long term.
That's debatable. Since 3 years is a pretty long time. And probably if you left it there for another 3 years, it'd do just fine.
Director, if I could clarify that point, I think the vendor has refused to sell us that specific tank because of their liability of selling that to us. And staff has looked at the value of just continuing to rent, how long, that would be versus this $300,000 construction cost. And I think the ROI was specifically like, how many years?
Is looking at the two options, renting the temporary tank for as long as it fails, understanding that we have an assumption of 5 years compared to having the permanent tank replacement project. It was a return of investment of 6 years.
Is that how long this permanent tank has been in place since the leak?
It's been 3 years.
It's been 3 years.
Which we haven't factored into that cost estimate. But if we were to continue using this tank for the foreseeable future, we're invested in this project, we think within 6 years, this would be paid back, as long as we use it.
How much should we pay? What's our rental cost?
About 15 to
15,000 a year?
1,500 per month.
1,500, so 18,000 a year.
So when we have to replace this temporary tank, should that fail, there's crane rental to remove tanks, and we'll be on the service of 4 days, and we have to provide potable
Okay.
water. So all these are calculated into the return of
Right. So right now I'm paying 1,500 a month, 18,000 a year for the tank. I've been paying that for 3 years. So that's 54,000. And I could rent this tank, continue to rent this tank for the next 10 years for 180,000, which is not quite half, but about 40% of the cost, just the construction cost of a new tank.
So when we did the.
Okay, I'm just
Yes, we.
making comments.
We look into
You
that.
don't need to respond. Just observations as somebody who's just looking at numbers. So another number just to, because I'm like, wow, a lot of times we do talk about percentage of construction for the soft costs. So our soft costs here are almost 40% of our construction costs. Pretty high ratio.
Yeah.
I understand that engineering costs about the same, whether it's a small or large thing.
Exactly.
Percentage wise, it goes down as the bigger the construction
Yes.
cost.
Yes.
I understand, but I had to throw that in.
Sure.
All right, I'm not quite sure that we need to replace the tank that we can continue to rent, but at some point it would have to be replaced. So, I support moving this along. And it is 100% paid for by Marathon.
That's correct, Director. If I could just touch on that point, I think the reliability that the permanent tank offers is, it's goodwill to our customer who is paying for that reliability through that $3.1 million fixed payment. So even that aspect of it alone may be sufficient to put aside the worries on the dollars.
So are you, Director Fave, okay with moving it forward?
Yes.
Right. So now we go to our favorite project, Item 5D, the new system selection for the DCS replacement project. Mr. General Manager, please introduce that item.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this item begins on packet page 34. And for the presentation, we do have John Benner, our engineer 3, for the presentation.
Okay, good evening, directors. So here today to present action item 5D of the DCS replacement project. Today I'll be presenting the results of our selection process and requesting input on the final system. So the item begins on page 34, but we start the presentation on page 41. Next slide, please. So this slide gives a rough overview of the project schedule with the cost estimates. You can see that shown in the green lines, demonstrating the anticipated cost estimate narrowing as we approach that GMP. We anticipate receiving that guaranteed price proposal in late summer or early fall. At that point, the board will have the option to proceed with the GMP or take that off-ramp option shown there in the graphic and end the project early. As you can see, we have recently completed the system selection process. We anticipate receiving the Class 4 construction cost estimate next month. Next slide, please. So selecting this new control system is a very important thing for the district. The system we select will likely be used by the district for 10, 15, maybe 20 years. It will be interacted with daily by operators, weekly by maintenance personnel, and by engineers and contractors every time we have a capital project. We've summarized our goal with the selection with the sentence here. So to select a new control system that reduces operational risk and improves future projects while maintaining reasonable life cycle costs. And we can break these three main categories into criteria. So operational risk, we want a system that's easy to maintain. We want it to have clear standards and guidance, and we want to have high uptime or availability of the system for reliability purposes. And then when it comes to future projects, the new system should be easy for us to integrate into when we're bringing on an important new system. There should be good familiarity with this system in the industry so that we can bid out work, and it should be highly compatible with district equipment. In terms of life cycle cost, we need to consider the initial installation cost of the equipment, as well as maintenance and annual support costs. And finally, the work on the system should be easily available so that we can get competitive pricing on work on the system. Next slide, please. So we went out and reviewed the current systems on the market. We had a two-stage evaluation process. The preliminary evaluation process looked at 13 different systems on the market and evaluated them across both technical and business needs. I covered this preliminary evaluation process a couple of months ago, so I won't go into detail here, but it resulted in a short list of 4 systems that meet all of the technical and business needs for the district. We then took those 4 shortlisted systems and compared them to each other to try and pick an optimal system for the district. They were evaluated across a range of categories, including a major emphasis on support costs. As these were all shortlisted systems, all 4 of these meet the basic needs of the district, but some systems are definitely more optimal than others, as I'll show in the next few slides. Slide based. This slide shows an overview of the evaluation process. So as you can see, we began with a comprehensive long list of all the major systems on the market. They were then narrowed down to that shortlist, and I'll go into detail on each of those shortlisted options, but our final evaluation process has generated a recommended system in Aviva system platform with Schneider Electric Monaco hardware. Next slide. So Rockwell Automation's Plant PAX system is one of our shortlisted options. It's a single comprehensive platform with both the hardware and the software provided by Rockwell Automation. So this does mean that we don't be dealing with a single vendor for the entire system, which is a benefit. Rockwell provides certified builds where they guarantee system performance if you build it the way that they recommend, which we would do. The hardware is made in America, and there is significant support both from the vendor and third parties in the industry, which makes bidding out work simple. However, Rockwell has by far the most expensive hardware, which means it's also expensive to maintain, and it's the most expensive for annual vendor support as well. In addition, Rockwell's hardware is not as fully compatible with some of the older district equipment as the other shortlisted systems. So you can see these concerns highlighted here graphically on that table at the bottom. So you can see the red highlight on the cost items there, but it's not the optimal system for those categories, and the orange highlight for compatibility. So in summary, Rockwell's Plant PAX system is highly competent, comprehensive system, but it does have a large price tag. So,
John, if I could interrupt you, and I apologize, but I was a little confused by your coloring system here since there is no index for it. Green basically means it's good,
yeah, let's go on this, yeah.
yellow means caution, and red means no good.
Yeah, in comparison to the others, yeah.
Just
Yeah,
wanted
and
to-
standards can
I
be
read this and I'm
confusing.
going like, what is,
Yeah, red means that in comparison to the other shortlisted systems, it doesn't meet that category. Okay, Siemens. So Siemens offering is their Somatic PCS7 system. So like the previous system, this is an all-in-one solution from a single vendor, which makes support easier. Technically, this system has the most similar setup to our current DCS system, so it requires less getting used to than other options. And Siemens also presents a very good plan for how to integrate into our existing system with the initial installation, connect to our older equipment. However, the equipment is not made in the USA, and it isn't that common in our industry in Southern California, which means there's only a couple of local consultants who will be able to bid on any system work. So we'd be limited when we're bidding out work to third parties. In addition, there were a few minor concerns from West Basin's IT department about compatibility with the district IT infrastructure. When it comes to cost, Siemens is the mid-range system, both initial installation cost and future maintenance, the orange line. And in short, the Siemens option is a solid system that represents the closest to a straight upgrade of our current system, but with similar disadvantages to the current system we have in terms of. So, the third of our four shortlisted solutions is referred to as Ignition. So this solution is a hybrid option. It takes Ignition software from one vendor called Inductive Automation and installs it on top of modern hardware from Schneider Electric. So hybrid options allow us to kind of mix and match and make a complementary system where we're covering some of the deficiencies of one of the aspects by getting the system from another vendor to match it. But it does mean that when it comes to maintenance, we'd be dealing with multiple vendors if there's an issue. This hybrid system takes the very high compatibility of the Modican hardware made by Schneider Electric, which is also the lowest cost hardware and is made in America, and combines it with the lowest cost software on the list. The Ignition software is also highly customizable, allowing us to build it however we would like. However, the main concern comes from that customizability. The Ignition software is effectively a blank box that we're given and we can build it how we like, but it means that no two Ignition systems are the same. So we reached out to third-party contractors who told us that they would all charge more to work on Ignition systems because they would have to spend time learning how we've set up a specific system and they would just be able to jump straight into work and then they'd have to understand how we set it up. In addition, Inductive Automation, the company that makes Ignition, do not provide 24-hour support, unlike the other options in the shortlist, which means the district would have to find a third-party contractor to provide 24/7 support that the district would require. And finally, the system's bare bones nature raises some concerns with West Basin's IT department around configuration and support. And staff believes that there would need to be additional support in the form of additional personnel to manage this system and keep it up to date. So that would either be on the West Basin side or the contract operator side, but we believe we would need additional support beyond that of the other shortlisted systems. So in summary, this shortlisted option is the lowest cost on the face of it and has some good features. It does come with additional risk, including quite a few unknown costs in terms of maintenance and future projects. Next slide, please. Finally, we come to the last system. This is the one that came out on top of our evaluation process. This is technically another hybrid system like the last one we saw. However, the software provider, Aviva, is a subsidiary of the hardware provider, Schneider Electric. So it's a hybrid system, but it actually does maintain the benefit of a single point of contact. This option uses the same hardware as the previous option, so the same benefits of low cost, made in America hardware that is highly compatible with all of our current and future equipment. But unlike the previous option, the software that comes with it comes ready-made for the water wastewater industry out of the box. So it means it's much easier to bid out work to third-party contractors. They know what they're getting into when they come to site and they see it's an Aviva system. In addition, Aviva, the software provider, provides the processing system in the industry. It's called Aviva Pi, and it has a huge array of useful data analysis tools, such as the ability to track energy and chemical usage, forecast future operational costs, visualize maintenance programs to maximize efficiency. Final positive of the system here is that the software cost is based on number of users, not processes, unlike most other systems. So as we complete CSP projects, we add pumps or treatment processes, the software cost does not increase. However, the only major negative of this system is that it is the only one on the list that is subscription-based. So this means that unlike the other systems where you just buy the software upfront and then you pay for vendor support yearly, Aviva wraps the software cost up into their annual support plan. So that means that you're paying an annual subscription for both the initial software, the keeping updated, and vendor support. Despite this, the subscription is currently the second cheapest annual option we looked at for annual costing, even though it's got that software cost wrapped up in it. But it does add a risk that the vendor in the future could increase the subscription. This is the way the industry is moving as a whole, but the other options on the shortlist as of now are single point of purchase. To mitigate this risk, the district intends to lock in the price for 3 or 5 year periods, depending on which one gives the best available price. So in summary, this option meets or exceeds all of the district's requirements and fits the district's needs almost perfectly, with the only concern being the risk around subscription-based software. Next slide, please. So here you can see the estimated cost of the 4 systems. These are the costs for material vendor support only, not the costs to install it and set everything up around it. You can see here the Rockwell's material costs, both now and in the future, phase 2 of the project, are much higher than the others. Siemens comes in at the midpoint in terms of those material costs. And then in terms of hardware, both Ignition and Aviva come in very low, with the main difference being between the two being very cheap ongoing software cost of Ignition compared to Aviva. No ongoing software cost, just cost. However, as you can see, once the district completes phase 2 of this project, so the post phase 2 annual costs in the last column here, the annual maintenance costs are actually roughly the same between the last 2 options, the Aviva system platform and Ignition, due to that used pricing we discussed with Aviva. The asterisks here on the Ignition annual pricing are due to those additional hidden costs for third-party maintenance of future CFP projects. We know that contractors will charge more to work on an Ignition system. It's difficult to quantify exactly how much those hidden costs will be right now, but it is a risk. Next slide, please. And this slide shows the overall scores from that final evaluation process. As you can see, Aviva system platform with Schneider Electric Modicon hardware came out on top and is the recommended system of the evaluation process. Next slide, please. Here are the remaining tasks in this pre-construction phase. So we're looking today for input from the board on which systems to select. But once we've made that selection, staff will develop the array of standards shown here on the left, whilst working on the 6% system design builder. And as mentioned earlier, there will be a couple more construction phase estimates for the GMP, so we'll be able to narrow that cost down. We anticipate bringing the GMP back to the board in September of this year. Next slide, please. This is that information from the previous slide in graphical form, showing the remaining schedule for this pre-construction phase. Slide, please. In terms of budget, we anticipate remaining well within the budget for this fiscal year on this project. So far, we have invoiced only 40% of the design builder's pre-construction phase contract and 42% of the owner's advisor's contract. We anticipate finishing the fiscal year on around 80% spent. In terms of the overall project cost, in November, staff presented the Class 5 estimate for construction services at approximately $17 million. We anticipate this dropping significantly with the Class 4 estimate due to the selection of one of the cheaper shortlisted options. We should be receiving the Class 4 estimate next month and aim to present to this committee in March. Next slide. So that brings me to the actual action item. That the board provide input to the general manager on which of the following shortlisted systems to proceed with. These are listed in order of recommendation. Number 1, Aviva system platform and Schneider Electric Modicon. Number 2, inductive automation Ignition and Schneider Electric Modicon. Number 3, Rockwell Automation Pump EAX. Or number 4, Siemens Simatic PCS7. And with that, I'll conclude my presentation and open out any questions.
Thank you for that presentation. Director Savé, you had a question?
I thought that was a great presentation, how you broke it each vendor. You did a great job on that. Well, you made my decision clear. And you know, the staff's recommendation, you know, I agree with moving forward, Chair. That's my comment.
They're asking us to actually pick and make a recommendation. So.
Yes, yes,
Recommendation.
and that's Aviva. Yeah, the Aviva recommendation.
You're comfortable with making that recommendation? All right, Director
Yes.
Steer, do you have any comments?
The final decision has to be done by a full board, doesn't it?
Yes, correct.
Committee recommendation. Okay.
And Director Gray, do you have any comments?
No, I'm good, thanks.
I have some questions and comments, I think. So on the second low cost, which appears to be the more favored in terms of the rankings that came out. One is, you had mentioned some of these were American-made products. Is this one all American-made?
Yes, it is.
We do have a hybrid of vendors as opposed to some of the other products. What are some of the challenges with having a hybrid?
So some of the challenges of having a hybrid vendor product system is that when it comes to maintenance, there can be a bit of finger pointing there. When you have a problem with the system where one vendor might say, oh, no, it's an issue with the software, the other vendor might say, no, it's an issue with the hardware. So that can be one of the issues with the hybrid system. The system that came on top of our evaluation here is a hybrid system technically, but the software vendor is actually a subsidiary of the hardware vendor. So we'd only have one point of contact that we would contact for that. So it actually eliminates that kind of finger pointing aspect.
So are you saying then that really it's not a hybrid system?
So Schneider Electric provides their own software package. So you could go fully Schneider Electric with their own software package. They purchased Aviva, I think 6 or 7 years ago to provide an alternative software package. That alternative software package, along with the recommendation system platform, actually covers a lot of the deficiencies in the Schneider Electric hardware and enhances a lot of aspects there. So while you could go fully Schneider Electric with their own software and hardware, we've elected to go for the Schneider Electric hardware with the software system that they have purchased to kind of cover some of the industry concerns with their own system. So it is a hardware in that we are covering the deficiencies of a single vendor-based system by mix and matching effectively, but it's still a single throat to choke.
Well, you kind of wavering on that answer. So maybe you need to go back to them. I'd like to know, are they going to be then, that is Schneider Electric who owns Aviva, are they going to take ownership of the entire system? Or are we still subject to, this is not my responsibility, it's their responsibility?
So the way it works, the way it works is that you procure a support package through Schneider Electric. And they cover Aviva as one of their products. So it is a single support, point of support, and they guarantee their products. So you would go to them and say, I have a problem with our system, and they would come out and fix it, whether it's the software or the hardware.
What if we got the Allen Bradley system? Would you still be buying a support system?
Yes, with Rockwell would be the purchasing support system. And their support system is very comprehensive, but it is the most expensive.
So in this case, we retain an owner's agent, Arcadis.
We retain the owner's advisor for the remainder of this project. Well, until we get into construction, when we put out for bid the construction management process contract.
They were retained, they were the first consultant we retained, and then we retained Tetra Tech to do the design build portion, or progressive design build portion. So I'm assuming that Arcadis has been involved.
Arcadis has been involved, yeah. They provided support with us both on the design build, kind of managing the progressive design build process, but also in reviewing, like, for example, we're developing standards and documentation right now we don't have the expertise in-house to look at the design builder standards they're developing and saying, yes, that's great. We relying on Arcadis to help us with the review of those documentation.
So Arcadis has been involved in.
They have been involved, yes.
That's why we retained them.
Yeah.
What is Arcadis' recommendation?
Arcadis' recommendation is the same as the evaluation. So they actually ranked it in the same order. System platform, so Aviva system platform, conduct automation ignition, Rockwell pump, AX, and SCs. We had many workshops, round tables with all of us sitting around the table to come to a final.
So if Arcadis' recommendation is to go with Aviva, and you guys seem to be recommending that, why are you asking the board to make the decision as to which system? to go with?
I can answer that.
We're not experts at this, and I know I talk about a lot of things and I'm comfortable with some of these subject matters, but this one is one of those where I go back and forth.
Yeah, if I could jump in on that question, Director. This actually, staff envisioned this as an info item initially, just to bring it to the board because, you know, as you point out, it's not really a hard action item that's needed here. It's really just the input. And you will have an opportunity at that GMP point to approve the project with the selected equipment or not. But we didn't want to presume that the board wouldn't have an opinion about the selection process. And so, as you heard here, this is how the criteria was developed. This is how it was evaluated. We think it's a pretty clear-cut decision as to which vendor is the best value for this project. But once again, staff did not want to presume that we would just bring this as an info item and that the board would agree or the committee would agree. So we modified it to an action to allow for the mechanism of an input should the committee decide. But in all honesty, if you're comfortable with the selection and the green option, staff is very comfortable with that as well.
Yeah, at this point, if that's the consensus of our representative, Arcadis and staff, as well as the Tetra Tech, which is the design builder on this, progressive design builder. That would seem to be the more direct approach as opposed to putting the board in a position of actually selecting a system at an intermediary stage. An awkward position to put a board in. I'd like to go back to kind of the overall cost. So right now, we're talking that this whole thing, guaranteed maximum price, when we get to that guaranteed maximum price, which should be by the end of sometime in September, if I read the schedule correctly. It's gonna be about $23 million.
No, $23 million for the project as a whole. The GMP, we estimated, the current estimate for the GMP is 17 million. The 22 million includes some time for this pre-construction phase.
Thank you for that, because that was where I was headed with. So then how much is the whole thing going to cost us with all of the other costs? So it's 23 million, that includes the guaranteed maximum, of which 2.6 million or something is already being committed to in terms of the upfront work to get to the guaranteed maximum point. So that's included in there, the cost for Arcadis and all of staff time is included in that 22 million.
And an estimated cost for the construction manager contract and the initial audit cost. Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. I'm not quite sure that this needs to move forward to the full board and that the full board should be involved in actually picking between two systems here. I do think it's a very good information item, and I think that we had a nice discussion about it. But I'm of the opinion that this should only move forward as an information item.
Okay, but it's going in front of the board, right? Correct?
Yeah, and as an information item.
Is it okay?
If I may, Director, staff was very careful in crafting the recommendations, so we're not looking for necessarily a selection today by the board. We chose our words carefully so that the board will provide input to the general manager on the selection, and I think we've heard the input.
So just move it to the as an information item, and would be fine to do that, because it's gonna come back later. But it is the consensus of Arcadis, you guys, and Tetra Tech as a designer, or a designer part of the design build team.
Maybe if I could just have John, I think he touched on it, but just reiterate who the evaluating panelists were, which companies they came from.
Yeah, so we had Tetra Tech, then the people working at Enterprise Automation is a subsidiary of Tetra Tech. Robosys, who are an integrator that Tetra Tech are using to provide expertise on these different systems. We had Arcadis, we had Westbase, and Jacobs as well, were actually on the panel. So
They're the ones that developed the green, orange, and red, essentially, or the score.
correct. I did the green, orange, and red, but yeah. But yeah, the scoring was developed by that. We had several workshops, and we had effectively Tetra Tech split their team into four, and they had kind of four teams champion each system, so it wasn't just biased on project management. We sat down, we discussed with vendors, we had many workshops over a period of time to score these different systems. Yeah. And this was the consensus amongst all.
When this does come back for further action, I would like to see the discussion in there about the fact that Schneider will be, or we will, as part of the overall project, end up with a single contract for them to support both halves of the package.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I should mention, I didn't mention it before, the construction cost estimates we're doing includes 5 years worth of the system. So
An actual obligation.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that, we can move to the information calendar. And Mr. General Manager, you want to go over the information calendar?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Item 6A is our engineering operations update. It's the quarterly capital improvement program and technical planning program. This item begins on packet page 57. And as you can see, people mobilizing, we do have a team here for this presentation. But leading it off, we have Susanna Lee, our intervention.
Good afternoon. Sharon. So if you turn to the presentation, actually, slide number 2, it has an overview and agenda for the presentation. So we'll go over the look ahead in the next slide. But for today, as part of today's presentation, we selected the list of 5 projects as listed. Should you have any desire to just choose and pick which project, let us do so. Otherwise, we are fully ready to present each one of the projects.
So, Director Savain, do you want a presentation on each one of these projects, or are you okay with skipping some of these and just focusing on 1 or 2, or skipping them all and saying we can read them?
Yeah, I'm good with just going over like a couple and then.
Which ones would you prefer?
Oh, the Donald Deere building project. And,
Director, if I could, staff has presentations ready for the 6, 5, I can't.
oh, okay, gotcha. Okay,
Memo has just a written quick update on each and every project.
okay, got it.
If I if you would like to just hear a couple like top bulk chemical, we'll provide you a project update on that technical planning project, which will eventually lead to follow-up construction projects.
Okay.
Will be recommended.
I'm fine with that, Chair.
Your recommendation is the proceed with the chemical storage condition assessment? Right. And
Sorry.
I would also, the one I'm more interested in getting an update on is the solids handling improvement project. So maybe we can do those two.
It's worth noting, Director, that we're going to bring a project closeout item next month for the fire protection system. So you'll get a second bite at the apple there.
And we'll have our intern, Jack Chenham. He's fully ready to provide that project update as he was heavily involved in that project.
Which one?
Jack.
No, I know.
The fire protection. Sorry, I apologize.
You're now on the hot seat.
We can come back next month and wrap it up.
Okay.
All right, so.
But before
let's
I move on,
ahead
can
and-
I also add in that I want to introduce Mario Batista. He's the new
Engineering supervisor helping on the production, so I just want to take the opportunity.
Welcome, Mario.
So,
Smart to come back.
he was previously a West Basin employee and he came from WRD, so he's coming back.
Mario was here, left, because he left with Eric, actually.
Oh, yeah.
And then he came back.
Oh, Eric brought us back.
And Eric's brought him back. Oh, it's good and bad.
Okay.
Okay, now moving on to the look ahead. We have two action items for February. Oh, there we go. So on-call material testing and labor compliance as well, so. And then again, we'll bring back the fire protection project as a closeout report by Jack next month. Okay, with that, I'll turn it over to staff. Camille, to go over the bulk chemical.
Thank you, Susanna. If you could follow me along to, there you go, the next slide, please. So good evening, members of the committee. As you recall, the bulk chemical storage condition assessment project was brought to you guys in May 2025. And there we presented MK and Associates was awarded to perform a select number of tank assessments at Edward C. Little and the Torrance Refinery facilities for phase 1 of the project. At that time, the intent was to have the ECL tanks assessed first, with the Torrance Refinery tanks to follow. However, the priority shifted to prioritize the Torrance Refinery tanks based on the progress of the agreement with the Torrance Refinery. So for the past 6 months, the project has primarily focused on the Torrance Refinery tanks. And for the next 6 months, the consultant will focus on the Edward C. Little tanks. So this slide shows an overview of the project status. And for the Torrance Refinery condition assessment report, the 13 tank inspections occurred throughout last fall, and the final condition report was delivered to us in December. While I'm the project manager for the Torrance Refinery water recycling plant tanks, Alejandra is the project manager for the Edward C. Little tanks, so she will give you an update on those.
Thank you, Camille. So as Camille mentioned, the condition assessment at Torrance took place first. However, there were some activities related to the tank Edward C. Little that occurred in a parallel effort with the assessment that was conducted at Torrance. These activities include the kickoff meeting to discuss and coordinate the priority for each of the facilities, a site walk conducted in late summer, and the development of the work plan. Those are the expenditures incurred up to January 2026 for about like $3,000. The inspections itself will be conducted in 2 rounds. So the first round is currently ongoing. The second round is scheduled to be performed at the end of February. The anticipated completion date for the condition assessment is April 2026. Next slide, please. At Edward C. Little, there are 11 tanks that will be inspected. 2 of those 11 tanks are for the sodium hypochlorite and the remaining are ferrichloride tanks. The image that you see on the right side of the slide illustrates the location of the tanks, which is at the back of the treatment facility near the top floor. For the inspections, the first round has, which is already ongoing. It's inspecting 6 tanks, 1 of the sodium hypochlorite tanks and 5 ferrichloride. For the second round, it will be assess the remaining 5 tanks. Once the project is completed at Edward C. Little, the staff will share the results of the assessment with the board. With that, I will hand it over to Camille, who will be sharing the results of the assessment at Torrance.
Alejandra, on the next slide, you will see a map of the 13 tanks that were assessed for Torrance. And I want to note they range between 250 gallons to 8,000 gallons. And there are 5 bulk chemical storage tanks located in the south side of the facility, with the rest spread out around the north side of the facility. On the next slide, you will see a table. So MKA's inspector, Pacific Engineering, performed 3 rounds of inspections to look at all of these 13 tanks. The inspections included visual inspection of the exterior as well as the interior tank where it was accessible. The acoustic sounding and Barkle harness testing was performed to detect voids, delamination, and surface hardness. Visual inspection of the chemical feed system assets were also performed. So as shown on the table, these associated assets include mechanical, which refers to the piping, the pumps, and the valves, the electrical assets, which refers to the control panels, the level indicators, and the temperature controls, and then the structural assets indicate the tank anchorage system and the containment area. So this table shows the estimated remaining useful life of those assets as well as the tank. On the next slide, you will see photos from some of these inspections. So on the top right is a photo of the MFCIP caustic tank, and that's the inside. You will see there's a little bit of delamination. And then on the bottom right, you will see heavy corrosion for the sodium hypochlorite anchor. And based on these inspections, discussion with operators, remaining useful life, and historical work order, MKA created a list of 15 prioritized recommendations, and here lists the top 10 high priority recommendations. For priority 1, the project includes the replacement of the sulfuric acid day tank, the level indicator, feed pumps, control pumps, and associated valves. But it should be noted that some of these recommended projects include assets that were only visually inspected. Therefore, further assessment will be needed to determine if they should be implemented. On slide 72, or page 72 of your packet, you will see a preliminary schedule that was recommended by MKN on how to phase in these projects. The top 2 projects are occurring in the first year, year 1, with the remaining prioritized projects occurring in a sequential manner afterward. This schedule was determined based on the remaining useful life of the assets and the existing redundancy in the system. Again, I do want to reiterate that the next steps for this project is to discuss these recommendations and the schedule with staff and Jacobs to determine the best path forward. So a copy of the final condition assessment report can be provided to the board, but this concludes our project update, and we're open to answer any questions you have.
Thank you for the presentation. Director Fave, any questions?
Questions?
Director Deere?
Of course.
Director Gray, any questions?
No, thank you.
So we're just doing the inspection. We'll write an assessment report, and the assessment report will have recommendations.
Right, so the Torrance Refinery Conditional Assessment Report is completed. So this is taken from that report. The Edward C. Little one, it has not been completed. So staff can already proceed with the Torrance Refinery recommendations to determine what should be implemented.
So what kind of recommendations have you seen so far?
It's focused primarily on tank replacements, but then because MKM also looked at the associated assets, they also bundled some of these projects with replacements of, like I said, the level indicator, things like that. So based on what they visually inspected, we were able to get these bigger, more CIP focused projects for rehab and
Okay, so go to slide 11 or 10, whichever one preceded this one. So on that tank, is that the recommendation's going to be, or the assessment's going to be that it should be replaced?
Correct. So that specific tank is priority 3. I'll replace the MSCIP caustic tank.
And the reason for that is?
The inspection they did. So they did Barkle harness testing, and they determined that the remaining useful life is lower. and also the fact that where it's located within the process treatment.
If, when you say remaining useful life is lower compared to what?
10+ years. So that's like the industry standard for it to have a good enough life to just continue. Once it goes below 10 years, that's when they start recommending the
Maybe you could speak to the slide, the previous slide, that has the respective lives in different categories. It's a little tiny though.
Right. So this table shows that the classic tank it's a little small, it's less than 5 years. So when it starts going less than 5 years, that's when they start to recommend that it should be either rehabilitated.
But that's just kind of an industry standard. An industry standard says you should replace water pipelines every 70 years. There's pipelines that have been in the ground for 100 years and are perfectly good and don't need replacement. So when we're looking at comparison to that, that's what I'm saying. Why just do an industry standard when that's just meant to give a guideline? Maybe you should look at it in a time period, but that doesn't mean it needs replacement in that time period. Some facilities last a lot longer, some last a lot less. There are pipelines that fail in less than 70 years for other reasons than anticipated by the standard industry use. And like you said, there's some that are over 100 years old and don't need replacement today. So the whole point of having those standards is just a reference. It doesn't mean that it needs to be done.
Victor, I agree with you, that sentiment, but the other thing is the industry standard assumes that you've done proper maintenance throughout the life cycle of that asset. And I would be cautious to make that assumption in our case, given the 30 years of deferred maintenance we've had on a lot of these facilities. And so while the industry standard is I think a valid reference to make, in our case, especially with some of these more critical tanks, we do need to look at it, I think, with a discerning eye.
I think part of all the criteria is including like tank age, but also has considered like the maintenance records, like how many times the tank have been repaired or spot repairs. So that is included in the considerations.
Appreciate that. So let's go back to slide, whichever slide had the pictures on it. Slide 10. All right, so if we're looking at that anchor bolt, it looks pretty ugly.
Probably why we chose that picture.
Probably why you chose that picture. So it's always meant to impress. So if I scrape that, clean it up, and get all that rust removed so that it doesn't look ugly, how much metal have I really lost?
Well, I would suggest that the anchor bolt is fully representative of other materials in that location, right? Because one thing that I would also say about our comparison to industry standards is we are very coastal, most of our facilities, right? Southern California. And so specifically our metals probably take a little heavier beating than they would in more inland communities. Additionally, all of these facilities were built through a design build approach back in the 90s and early 2000s. And I would offer that a traditional design build has historically been used to get the project done speedily and cheaply. And so what that could suggest is that our facilities were not built for the longest life cycle possible. So we have a lot of strikes against us as far as the need to repair and replace a lot of these assets. But yes, to your point, Director, we could probably salvage that one anchor bolt right there.
But my point is going to be that in a lot of cases, we're showing pictures that look really ugly, but they can be represented in a different way. And really the question that I would have is, how bad is that? If I can just, for illustrative purposes, a lot of us have been in Chicago, and if you drive through parts of the city, you'll see the elevated rail, right? And you're driving around and you're looking at all those steel columns. They look pretty bad, but I don't see anybody rushing to replace them because they're going to collapse. So in some instances, yes, it can look ugly, but that doesn't mean that it really has reached the end of its useful life or is an imminent failure of collapse. Or
Yes.
failure. So I do have kind of an issue when all things are always presented to look like, oh my God, you gotta do something when that necessarily isn't the case. And we can be selective of how we bring forward illustrations.
Oh, certainly. And as far as the visuals in these presentations, you know, the observations, the physical observations we can make are great. If we showed you the result of some materials test, it's probably less striking, right? But I do want to use it as a reminder that the condition assessment is done by experts and know what they're looking at, but they're doing more than just looking. I think they've quantified a lot of things using a number of different tests. And I haven't read the report myself yet, but I would look to Camille or Alejandra to maybe list all of the different type of non-observational tests the condition assessment considered.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could just add real quick. First of all, this is just an information item. We will be bringing a closed session item to the board meeting to discuss the Torrance Refinery. And it's important to note that our customers rely on West Basin not only for reliable service, but customer service. They are paying for reliability within their system. And these projects and undue delays to these projects actually create problems within our contractual relationship with our refineries. And so understand that we're going to discuss that on Monday. You know, this information, I think, will be very helpful as part of that discussion to see exactly what they're paying for and what their expectations are. Because again, when we defer or delay, you know, they're continuing to pay. And I want to make sure that they understand exactly what they're getting and what that customer relationship should be.
Can I have a comment, Chair?
Yes,
I think we should give Chair Desi a tour of the facilities over there and the refineries. You know, I just wanted to comment, you know, because I've worked in refineries, I've worked in the wastewater treatment plants, and this is nothing new. When you see these type of pictures like this out in the field, it's there. And I know for sure, when I worked out in the field, these type of stuff we come across, especially when it comes to running electrical and stuff like that. So I understand, I get it, because when I see these type of pictures, you know, and then the assessments that's done by staff, that type of work needs to be done. And if it's not being recommended by, you know, the refineries or our staff, that's assessments, then, you know, we got a big problem. We got a big problem out there, so.
As Camille pointed out, the next step is we're still gonna meet and discuss what is warranted to be project. So we're not gonna jump right in to replace all these. Yeah.
I understand. I'm just pointing out that when we do these things, we do need to take a big picture because we do have customers. They are investing. They expect us to deliver a quality product and that the money that they're putting into these facilities is a wise investment. And so if they're having to put in additional funding because we're saying there's something wrong when maybe that isn't the case, that's not in their best interest, and they themselves will recognize that. So some of their concerns is, you know, why are we paying for these things? We understand that we are asking for a quality product that it be delivered in a timely fashion, but we also want to make sure that the money that we're investing is well invested and we're not spending money that we don't need to spend. So. And I understand this information item, it's just that looking at these things, I've been out there with some of you and pointed out the whole thing and said, well, you know, I can look at this two ways. When I walked around and saw all of it.
They have provided information or their inputs on what they said. We have more.
Those are very,
And at the end of the day, they are making a recommendation, but they're gonna also, even though they are the professionals in that, in assessment, there will be a conservative side.
I think your point is very valid, Director, that, that has been part of our communication with these customers, especially when they do design facilities to last 50, 60, 100 years, the refineries. And here we are saying that 30 years in, we need to, replace some assets. And so we are sensitive to that. We definitely don't want to be, especially with these new contract structures, being investigated for the refineries. We don't want to be perceived as doing projects for the sake of doing projects. So staff, along with our consultants, will definitely pay close attention to the need. And when we do bring back any of the projects that are shown in that recommended schedule on one of the slides, we will make sure that it is a appropriately and necessary project.
Okay. So, thank you. Any other comments or questions?
No.
All right, so we'll move on then. The other presentation is the solids handling improvements project.
Good afternoon, directors. I'll be providing a brief update on this project. You can follow me on page 81 of the agenda packet. Next slide, please.
Which page did you say?
81.
Just as an overview of where we stand in terms of schedule, we issued notice to proceed to the contractor back in June of 2025. Our anticipated completion date is January 13th, 2027. The construction contract has a total value of $10,905,000, and through last month, December, they'd invoiced about $2.5 million. In terms of RFIs, we've received, I think it's up to 85 now, processed about 80, and submittals are right there. 94 submitted, and we have 4 open. Next slide, please. This is a previous slide just to remind the committee of the assets that are being replaced or rehabilitated as part of this project. So we are replacing 2 of our oldest sludge conditioning tanks, adding pH probes to all 4 conditioning tanks, replacing all 4 feed pumps and adding flow meters to the feed lines. We are refurbishing the filter cloth washing system, replacing the wash water pump, replacing acid wash pumps, including an acid flow meter, replacing the air compressors. We are refurbishing the bomb bay doors and replacing the curtains. One recent change, we have made the determination that a truck scale is no longer needed. We ran into some constructability issues, which made us reevaluate the need for a truck scale. And after a thorough internal investigation and discussions with our compliance department, we've determined that a truck scale is no longer needed. So we'll be negotiating a credit back to the district through some value engineering there. In terms of the control system, we'll be replacing the PLCs and adding workstations as well. Next slide, please. Here are some updates for construction photos. On the left-hand side, you'll see our temporary dewatering system that was brought online in November. This has allowed us to take down the plate and frame filter presses and proceed with the bulk of the project. The middle slide there, you can see some of the dewatered solids. And then the final photo on the right-hand side is the view from the second floor of the sludge handling building, looking down on the mixing tank and some of the polymer systems. Next slide, please. The photo on the left-hand side represents the new tank foundations. We are expecting our new sludge conditioning tanks to show up hopefully at the end of next month. But until then, the tank foundations sit there ready to receive them. At the beginning of December, we began pressure washing the plate and frame presses in anticipation of removing the plates to send them off to be recoated. Happy to report that was actually scheduled to be the long, basically the critical path of the project was recoating our 280 filter press plates. And that was expected to take 4 to 6 months. And the factory has had a very quick turnaround. We are sending off the last batch of the plates to them next week, and also expected to receive the first batch back. So we're ahead of schedule there. And then the final photo on the right-hand side shows the demolition of the feed pumps and their respective foundations. So we'll be building new equipment pads for those pumps and be expecting to receive those this summer. Next slide, please. Photo on the left-hand side represents unboxing and inspection of a large shipment of our filter press components. Those were delivered as part of an owner-furnished PO through Universal Filtration. So we received about $700,000 in equipment from Germany, who is the original manufacturer of the filter presses. The middle photo represents our plates ready for shipment. They are being recoated in a factory in Michigan. And then the photo on the right-hand side shows filter press one empty of those plates. Next slide, please. Finally, a quick overview of where we stand with our open POs. We have 5 POs for this project. PACE is providing our temporary dewatering system. Those are the centrifuges shown in the photos. Universal Filtration is providing a significant amount of replacement filter press components. And helped us deliver those components from Germany in December. Blue Angel provided circuit breakers for the temporary dewatering system as well. Our NAS is providing our 2 sludge conditioning tanks, and Advanced Systems Co. as providing an odor control system. With that concludes my update. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Director 5A, have questions?
No questions.
Director Gray?
Mr. Chairman, President Gray has logged off the call.
So right now, schedule wise, we're good because the year is supposed to per the contract.
Yeah, currently we're on schedule, and we're actually looking at the secondary critical path, trying to create as much flow as possible through those awful pumps.
And in terms of, we've only built about 20 little percent. But in terms of cost, you did mention you're going to be negotiating a credit. But are there any other potential requests for additional costs?
No, we've had a few minor PCOs, but in terms of change orders, we're net negative right now. So we're in good standing.
So in terms of the temporary dewatering, what are we using?
Yeah, we have centrifuges. Centrifuge.
There's rental equipment associated with a centrifuge.
Any other questions? Thank you. With that, I think we're pretty much the end.
No. Is there more?
No, those are the.
Okay.
We have the barrier production graph in the packet.
Yeah. Unless, would you like to see a presentation on the water production?
No, I think we can move on.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Director Deal, would you like to see a presentation on that? Okay. I think we're pretty much at the end. I do have one question. What is our NAS engineering contractor?
Those are the tank suppliers for the solids handling.
Same as the TV.
You may recall an item a few months back where we had to bring that item forward for a change order because the pole locations were wrong place, but they were the entity that we pre-procured directly the tanks for the solids handling project.
So they are part of the solid handling project.
Correct. In fact, I think they showed.
But why are they then billing through directly to us? At least the way I see it, as opposed to being part of the solid handling contract.
Oh, that's solely because we pre-procured those tanks to get a jump start on the lead time associated with them so that we would have them by the time that we.
Okay, so this is the, all right. That clarifies that. I was just trying to say, I don't remember the word.
I think in Kevin's slide where he had different consultants or contractors shown with the dollar values, there's a couple of different pre-procurements. We probably will see, yeah, that's the one. Blue Angel, he mentioned, Arnaz, those are equipments that we purchased directly in order to get them early and get them manufactured while we continue to develop the request for bids and selection of the contractor. So
Actually, my other question, well, all right, same difference. Okay, thank you for that clarification. All right, with that, I don't think we have any other items. Any director's comments?
None.
None, so we are adjourned. 10 minutes, sir.